Hello everyone, welcome back to Major Hi-Fi. I'm Luke. Today we're going to be talking about Ikko's GEMS, IEMs, also known as the OH1s. So in the past, I have reviewed Ikko's OH10 Obsidian. I'll link to that below, and that ran for about $199, which is the same price as this. And I was a huge fan of the Obsidian. I thought it was a really great deal for the price. So I definitely had expectations when I got this one. I knew that they were capable of making a good IEM for, the $200 price range, which is definitely a very saturated market right now. There's a ton of IEMs in this price range, so it's pretty competitive. But I had found that the Obsidian definitely stood out from the pack, and I wanted to see if this one would too. So yeah, let's take it out of the box and start off with the review. All right, so to start off, we have the IEMs, and this pin comes with the IEMs themselves. I put it on last time. I guess I should put it on again, shouldn't I? All right, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm wearing it. I'm representing the brand. Yeah, so these are the IEMs. Before we take a closer look at these, let me just show you what else we get. We have this leather carrying case, which basically just has a string you can wrap around it to open and close it. You just tie this off. And then we also get an MMCX cable with a 3.5mm termination, fairly standard. We also get a set of extra nozzles for the spout on these if you want to switch these out and alter the sound. And then we also get this neat tool for taking out the MMCX cable so you don't have to pull on it too hard, just like that, comes out. So yeah, a nice addition, adds some extra convenience. And then we are provided with 6 sets of rubber ear tips and 3 sets of foam. And as you can see, they've got a more ovular shape to them, ovular. They've got a different shape to them. It's not a perfect circle, which is because the spout on these also has that shape. So for me, this actually made a bit of a better fit in my ear, this kind of slightly warped shape. The only downside of it is that if you're trying to use these with, ear tips from like Final Audio or a third-party manufacturer, they might not be quite as snug of a fit. I was able to get them to fit on here if I wanted to. I ended up using the ear tips that came with these. So maybe not quite as much ability to customize with the ear tips because of this unique shape, though I still think you could get some standard ones on here, no problem. All right, so let's take a quick look at these. A really fun look going on here. It's quite similar to the Obsidian with this sort of organic rock-like texture on it. They have a very otherworldly kind of alien look to them. Maybe that's a bit much to say, I don't know, but to me they look very sort of like ethereal, very space-like and whatnot. I love the metallic blue. These also come in purple if you wanted that. We've got a nice clear sort of stripe going across the edge here. And then of course, as you can see, we've got these uniquely shaped ear tips, like I mentioned. Fit-wise, like I said, the sort of unique shape of the nozzle and ear tips on these made them fit a little bit better in my ears. I wouldn't mind the actual body of the IEM being a tad bit larger just to make them kind of fill the ears more. Overall, I didn't have any major issues with the fit on these. I've definitely used better fitting IEMs, but I've used way more worse fitting IEMs than these, so they checked the box just fine. These use one dynamic driver and one balanced armature hybrid driver. Ikko designed the cavity of these using something called separating vector acoustic systems technology, which they say improves volume, reflection, and diffusion angles. And these have an impedance of 32 ohms. Alrighty then, let's talk about how these sound. So the Soundstage on these to me felt pretty standard for the price range. I wasn't blown away by it, but I wasn't disappointed, if that makes sense. It definitely could have used a little bit of extra separation. It didn't feel intensely holographic. I wouldn't have minded a little bit more separated layering, a little bit less blend. But overall, the width felt fine. It felt like it was, like I said, very standard, par for the course. They definitely can convey a very wide mix really well, so there is room on these to kind of grow, but it's not going to take a kind of normal, conventional mix and spread it outwards more than it already is. So it's just a very accurate kind of, uninterfering soundstage, which is fine. Like I said, just a pretty standard sound in terms of imaging. If you listen to a lot of really, really busy music, these might not give you the most intense sort of, detail and separation from every single element, but that's not generally something that you're going to always want. Not everybody wants that intense separation. These definitely err on the side of a lot of coherence. Though I wouldn't say that I noticed any sort of unpleasant bleeding going on between different frequencies and areas that shouldn't have been mixing. terms of low end, these definitely do not have a super intense bass response. They don't feel rolled off, but they don't feel boosted either. They do definitely capture a pretty thorough image of the low end, so even sub-frequencies really low down are present, but they're quite faint. But even just having them in there, even if they're very subtle, is a nice thing to help fill out the sound very well. They still have a nice attack and percussiveness to them, which for me kind of makes up for the more subtle, sort of, somewhat subdued bass sound to them. Because if you're gonna give me a lower sort of bass response, I'm a real bass addict, so I would like to see something else in place of that. And if you can, create a strong attack, a strong hit, then that kind of makes me feel like I'm not missing out just because you haven't boosted the low end a lot. And these do a good job of kind of not boosting the low end and not making a big deal out of it, but still making sure that it's getting a nice place in the mix, a nice kind of cavity that's very firm and represented. Luke here, just wanted to pop in and say that if you're enjoying this video, it would be great if you could subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when we make new content, and hit the like button and leave us a comment if you have any suggestions or questions or anything like that. I would love to talk to you guys more. We would really love some help growing the channel, and just want to make sure that we're reaching our audience and whatnot. So yeah, any support is greatly appreciated, and let's get back to the review. Alright, so mid-range wise, these definitely feel like the mid-range is the star of the show on them. It's pretty featured, it's what stuck out to me most about them. It does a good job of having one of those mid-ranges that is pushing presence but isn't super rough or sharp around the edges, which I appreciate. So you're going to get those essential frequencies of guitars, vocals, pianos, anything in the mid-range is going to definitely be pushed forward, but not done so to the point of resonance or unpleasantness, really. You're not going to get the unpleasant kind of ear like twinge or tingle that you don't want, no nails on a chalkboard type sound. There's some subtle coloring going on in the high mid area, which is where the boost is really coming from in the mid-range on these, and that felt good for sort of smoothing out any edges that might be coming through when boosting that mid-range. My only complaint would be that I feel like the low mid could use a little bit more presence here. I wouldn't say that they feel hollow, but they just could use a little bit more low mid just to up that warmth factor a little bit more. It didn't seem like something I was constantly just sitting there being like, oh, these are great, but I wish that there was more low mid. It wasn't a constant bother to me, but kind of upon reflecting, I was like, I wouldn't mind just a few extra decibels in that area. And then at other times on certain songs, I wanted a little bit less high mid. I am very sensitive there, as if you've watched literally any of my videos, I've probably said. I feel I need to make that disclaimer, but yeah, I felt like sometimes I wanted a little bit less mid-range, but then on other songs, it felt perfect. So I guess it's kind of one of those case-by-case things. In terms of high end, these are definitely a bright IEM, but they are going about that brightness in a way that I've kind of seen more and more on IEMs, where they're boosting the 8K, 8 kilohertz down area a lot more than they're boosting the 8 kilohertz up area. So those kind of low highs, if you will, are definitely where the brightness is being pulled from. That extra shiny kind of 8K to 16K range is not cut, but compared to everything below that, it's definitely not as featured. For the sake of research, I did EQ these just to see what it would sound like if I did boost that kind of 8 to 16 range. And I did notice that doing that added some kind of clarity and extra crispness to these. But then once I got rid of it, I kind of also enjoyed that warmer, more smooth high end that was offered without that boost. So if you got these and you feel like they were just a few decibels in the high end shy of perfect, then you can easily just get an EQ app for your computer or use the EQs on Spotify or iTunes, whatever you want. I feel like just that one tweak for some listeners might be really great on the high end for these. A lot of people won't want it, depends on how much brightness you like. For me, I want pretty extreme brightness. And these also just have an overall really nice timbre to them, so when you do boost any area, it's gonna still sound really good because whatever frequency you're boosting or whatever area frequencies you're boosting, it's already going to be a very clean, purified sound. So when I upped that 8 to 16K range, what was brought out was just more kind of goodness and not just like something that was kind of being hidden or cut or ignored. before I wrap up, per usual, when I reviewed a headphone from the same company and the same price range, I like to compare really quickly. So I reviewed the Obsidian OH10, which is the same price as this one, as I mentioned earlier. So if you're looking at these two and you don't really know which one is best for you, I can give you a quick rundown of the differences. They are pretty clear to me. The OH1s, or the GEMS, definitely has a lower bass response than the Obsidian. The GEMS also just have a more accentuated, more present mid-range, especially high mid, and a bit of a brighter overall sound, whereas the Obsidian is definitely a bit more subdued in the mid-range and definitely has a significantly warmer high end to it. So I would say that the GEMS are definitely the snappier of the pair, and the Obsidian are definitely the warmer, bassier of the pair. That is how I would pretty much sum up their differences. All right, so overall, the GEMS I'm a big fan of. I think that's similar to the Obsidian. They are really a great deal for the price. They could definitely appeal to people who are, new to the whole IEM world and people who have, been lurking around for quite a while. Because these do have a pretty bright high end and a pretty contained low end, they're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I mean, no IEM is, but these definitely do have somewhat of a target audience to them. They're not a complete crowd pleaser. But a lot of people are really going to be into this sound for sure. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Ikko's GEMS OH1s. If you have any more questions about these that I didn't answer, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to talk to you guys. I will link to Major Hi-Fi's IEM ranking tool below per usual if you want to compare these to other IEMs from Ikko or other companies or similar price ranges. And yeah, I will be back soon with some more reviews and videos. And until next time, happy listening.